Introduction. No reader of this side of paradise in 1920, except F. Scott Fitzgerald, could have anticipated that his first novel would launch a career of intoxicating success for its 23-year-old author, who had declared as a Princeton undergraduate that he wanted to be one of the greatest writers that ever lived. It is a flawed novel, episodic, self indulgent, and loosely structured, written by a young man who didn't know how to plan or write a novel. 5 years later, the author of The Great Gatsby commented in his annotated copy of This Side of Paradise: I like this book for the enormous emotion, mostly immature and bogus, that gives every incident a sort of silly life. F. Scott Fitzgerald, 1925. But the faked references and intellectual reactions, cribs from Mackenzie, Johnson, Wells, Wilde, Tarkington, give me the pip. Timing can be crucial for the success of a novel, and the timing was right for This Side of Paradise. America was ready for it. In the spring of the first year of what Fitzgerald christened the Jazz Age, there was a large potential readership for a novel that seriously treated the concerns of youth, ambition, iconoclasm, idealism, and love. This Side of Paradise announced a revolt in sexual mores and introduced a new heroine to fiction: the brave, independent, intelligent, determined young American woman. This Side of Paradise was a novel of firsts: the first realistic American college novel, and the first in a series of mildly shocking college novels published during the 20s. Although it ends in 1919, it was the first American novel that examined the impending revolt of the youth in the 20s. This Side of Paradise seems tame after 85 years, and it was regarded as a sensational document of social history in 1920 because it published previously undisclosed realities about the generation of the Great War. On the basis of This Side of Paradise, readers would have been justified in expecting Fitzgerald to produce a string of sensational flapper novels or to abandon fiction when he ran out of collegiate material. But examination of This Side of Paradise from the perspective of The Great Gatsby and Tender is the Night reveals defining elements that were to be developed in Fitzgerald's masterpieces. It was an extraordinarily rapid fulfillment. Within 5 years after This Side of Paradise, Fitzgerald was able to write The Great Gatsby, the complexly planned novel that is now a contender for the great American novel. There is no promise in This Side of Paradise of Fitzgerald's later technical achievements, but the ideas and emotions of his mature novels can be identified in his apprentice novel. The major themes of Fitzgerald's greatest works are aspiration and commitment to ideas. Lionel Trilling described this quality better than any other critic. Fitzgerald was perhaps the last notable writer to affirm the romantic fantasy, descended from the Renaissance, of personal ambition or of heroism, of life committed to, or thrown away for, some ideal of self. Amory Blaine, like Jay Gatsby and Dick Diver, manifests a romantic readiness. Fitzgerald's heroes combined a sense of duty with a concomitant guilt at their failure to fulfill the requirements of their aristocratic egotism. Fitzgerald, who has been sloppily categorized as the celebrator of hedonism, was a moralist, in fact, a preacher. The unexpected juxtaposition of characteristics and material in this novel, and in all of Fitzgerald's major fiction, melds realism and romanticism, accurate social observation combined with a heightened sensitivity to the possibilities of life. This Side of Paradise is a love poem to Princeton, and Amory's feelings about his college are documented through the data provided by Fitzgerald: the inside knowledge of the social system, the undergraduate codes of behavior and values. Readers' warm response to This Side of Paradise in 1920 was stimulated by their recognition that it was authentic. At the beginning of the great collegiate decade, when the Big Three really were the Big Three, it provided instruction on how to be a big man at Princeton when prominent Ivy Leaguers, not necessarily athletes, achieved national recognition. College success was regarded as preparation for worldly distinction. Amory combines the drive for success and recognition with a sense of his unique destiny. The original title of the novel was The Romantic Egotist, which Fitzgerald retained as the title of Book One of This Side of Paradise, taking Amory through his departure from Princeton in 1917. Princeton shapes Amory's ambitions and ideals. The novel closes with the failed but still aspiring Amory making a pilgrimage to Princeton as to a shrine, seeking to renew his faith in his destiny. This Side of Paradise does not regard Princeton as an educational institution. Nothing worthwhile happens in the classrooms. A Fitzgeraldian judgment that elicited a Fitzgeraldian judgment that elicited a letter of protest from Princeton President John Grier Hibben after publication of the novel. The faculty is not regarded with respect, and no professor is credited with influencing Amory. Coursework and academic requirements interfere with Amory's real education, which he acquires through unassigned reading, writing, and conversation. God, how he talks. For a novel that provides reliable advice on how to flunk out of Princeton, This Side of Paradise is a remarkably bookish book. In his notebooks, Fitzgerald identified This Side of Paradise as a romance and a reading list. The titles of 64 books or poems and the names of 98 authors are mentioned, and many of them are meaningfully used. The title page epigraphs document Fitzgerald's debt to his reading, as well as the influence of English writers on his literacy persona at the time. The title of the novel is taken from the poem Tyre Tahiti by a romantic figure who died in the Great War. The Oscar Wilde epigram from his decadent novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1891. Amory's Princeton career recapitulates Fitzgerald's. There was nothing in the math or chemistry courses that Fitzgerald needed or wanted. He served his literary apprenticeship at Princeton by writing the Nassau Literary Magazine, For the Tiger, and for the Triangle Club musicals. The reviewer in the New Republic described This Side of Paradise as the collected works of F. Scott Fitzgerald, which was more than a wisecrack. The novel is a grab bag and incorporates or recycles one play, one story, and 3 poems. The Debutante, Babes in the Woods, Princeton, The Last Day, and On a Play Twice Seen, The Cameo Frame. Much of the emotional quality of This Side of Paradise derives from the conditions of its composition. It was first written in haste as the Romantic Egotist in 1917 by an army lieutenant who expected to die in battle and wanted to leave a memorial of himself. Yet the novel omits the shaping event of Fitzgerald's generation. To his last regret, he did not get over during World War I, since the author who wrote best from the emotions generated by personal experiences had no battle experience to draw upon. This Side of Paradise covers Amory's war in 2 letters and a poem, constituting the interlude between Book 1 and Book 2. Fitzgerald revised The Romantic Egotist in 1918 and rewrote it in 1919 as This Side of Paradise, after a time of misery resulting from his inability to marry Zelda Sayer. The published novel recapitulates the feelings generated in the author by the act of writing. And now we must go. Bye-bye.